Okay, all right. So, look, it's great. It's great to be here talking to Nelson's own George Bennett on the eve of the Giro d'Italia. Great to see you this morning, George. How are you feeling?
Yeah, good. I think excited is probably the overwhelming emotion at the moment. I mean, we've been building up to the Giro for months and months. I mean, even you'd even say a year in terms of the false start we had last year, and yeah, and then tomorrow we finally kick it off. So just want to get stuck into it now.
So obviously, you're part of one of what we call the super teams in cycling. I guess you've got a roster stack full of potential Grand Tour winners, and but with it, in terms of the team that you've got supporting you in the Giro, maybe not as many of the climbers that they've got in the Tour team. How do you think you can control the race in the mountains, and how will that play out for your tactics?
I think we're in a good spot because, like you say, we don't have heaps of climbers here. But when you can really use your teammates is on the flat, and if it comes down to a crosswind stage or these tricky finals and all the places where you really need a strong team around you, we've got a super stacked roster. So we're a lot of big guys, a lot of power, a lot of just experience and strength. And if you're winning the race, yeah, then you need some climbers. Then you need a lot of climbers. And yeah, if we have the luxury of finding ourselves in the pink jersey, I mean that's that's a long way from where we are now. And I mean that's just going to be a luxury problem that we, if we're realistic, we don't expect to encounter. But for the moment, there's a lot of teams with super good climbers here, and I just need to follow in the mountains and stay out of trouble on the flats. And when it really comes down to the group of favorites, when there's the best 10 guys in the race list, none of us, or maybe one of us, will have a teammate left, but it's not going to be that everyone else has two teammates and I've got none. So where I need them, where I really need to use my team, we've got a good team.
Great. And obviously, this year's Giro, we're going back to a gravel road stage in Tuscany. Some of the parcours that we normally expect to see in Strade Bianche. The last time the Giro was here, obviously there was a particularly bad weather day, and Kettle Evans, won a rain-soaked stage. Have you ridden on the gravel roads, and what's the approach for the team to keep you in contention on that type of stage?
Oh yeah, that's a real tricky stage. I mean, yeah, Montesino is going to be. I mean, it was a pretty epic stage in 2011. It was one of the most famous sort of Giro stages of recent history, and I've ridden Strada before, and I've actually really loved it. I grew up on the mountain bike. I'd spent a bit of time riding gravel roads. I mean, coming from Nelson, there's not a heap of main roads, and you run out of sealed roads pretty quickly. So if you're doing 30-hour weeks on the bike, you end up riding a fair bit of gravel. And I love it. And I've got, like I said before, I've got a good team around me for that. And yeah, I mean, it's a stage I'm looking forward to putting behind me, but I'm also excited to do it. It's a big opportunity, but it's also a massive trap. And I did Strade Bianche in 2018, and it was a perfect example of what can go wrong. I was having a great race. It was crazy weather, massive storms, and somehow found myself in the front group of 20 and thinking everything was great and life was good. And then suddenly I hit a pothole and smashed both wheels and end up, 20 minutes behind, and the whole race was over. So there's huge potential for something like this to happen on that stage. And yeah, I mean, you roll the dice, don't you? And you hope your bike handling skills and your teammates and your bit of good fortune can sort of turn the odds in your favor, but there's always an element of luck.
And thinking about the mountain stages, George, is there one in particular that you think that could be decisive, that might be the real sort of GC contender showdown?
Oh, the good thing about the Giro, well, depends which way. Good thing, bad thing. Depends which way you look at it. Depends how your legs feel. There's, it's not like the Tour where there's one stage that's really, the Queen stage, we call it. I mean, they're calling here the Taponi, like the Italian version of the Queen stage is stage 16. But you could pick any one of 4 or 5 stages and say that's the Queen stage. I mean, I think it's the hardest Yeah, it is definitely the hardest course I've ever seen for a Grand Tour in terms of climbing. So yeah, I think it depends a lot on how we race the stages, but yeah, stage 16 is going to be tough, but I mean 19, 20 are also tough. Zoncolon on stage 14 is a very tough finish. So yeah, I mean it's really hard to put a circle around one. I mean, I think already stage 4 is going to be tough. It's going to be terrible weather, they're predicting. So mountain finish into Solar there. So yeah, well, it's so many to choose from. So yeah, a lot of good stages ahead.
And obviously you're the first Kiwi to be leading a Grand Tour team, and to be wearing the New Zealand champions jersey as well at the same time. I mean, that must be wonderful. I mean, how's that going to feel on the first few days when you roll out there? Does that give you that extra level of motivation? For knowing that all the fans back home can see the jersey.
Yeah, hopefully they'll be able to pick me out now.
Yeah.
No, it is special for sure. I mean, every race you do in the New Zealand jersey is special, and every race you do as a Grand Tour leader. I mean, what I've noticed in the last few years is that being a helper is great and riding in the mountains, but really being sort of given the keys to the car is really a special feeling, and the fact that you're on every single day, 21 days, you don't take a day off now. You don't, every moment is crucial as a leader, and it's more than just riding a bike here. It's more about sort of getting the boys up and getting them, on the same page every day for 21 days. And like a one-day race is great to be a leader, and everyone can sort of turn it on. You come out of the bus fired up and it's on. But, try to do that 15 days in when you've done 3,000 Ks and you're absolutely rooted, and you're just trying to, you're trying to keep that same sharpness, and that's when you really turn to support back home and or whatever. You look for something a bit bigger than yourself to get you through that stuff, and that's it's always been special for me how much support's coming out of New Zealand, and see how much it's growing in New Zealand. I mean, it's really really special. So I'm excited to represent New Zealand.
What does he like to eat? What's his favourite food?
And do you expect to get obviously having the number one on your back and being that nominated team leader? Do you expect to get a bit more respect in the peloton and people to give you a little bit more space and allow you to move up the front, or is it not as simple as that?
No, I mean, there's some sort of hierarchical thing if you're winning and leading and things, but ultimately when you've got to be the first into that corner, and you've got 21 teams drag racing each other for one small narrowing in a road. It's dog eat dog, and no one cares if I'm wearing this jersey or being a leader of that. You've just got to get your handlebars in front of theirs and brake later than they brake, and make sure you're through that corner before them, and try to be on the right side of the crashes. So I'm not expecting any presence at all.
And what do you do when you're not riding the bike, George? Like what do you do to decompress and de-stress when that 8 hours when you're not riding the bike?
Are we talking on tour or off tour?
Well, both would be interested to know.
Okay, well at home it's a lot easier to chill out. We've got a great group of guys there. We get together, throw we've got a bit of a cricket club going. Spend a bit of time on the guitar. We've got a really good crew of people in Andorra, and also if I go down to Girona, there's also got some great friends there, and so yeah, we have a good, we sort of operate a black and white lifestyle in a way, in terms of the last month has been very antisocial. I've been sitting on the top of the mountains. I basically ride my bike or I lie down and just train, eat, sleep, and after the Giro, then I'll have a lot of time where I really try and do all the things I want to do. And obviously life is still far from normal over here with the pandemic, but we're starting to see a bit of normality coming back, and I'm definitely looking forward to sort of parking up at a pub with the boys and sort of breathing out after after this whole sort of experience is all over. But yeah, I mean, when we're on tour, there's not a lot of time, to be honest. You know, you're up, breakfast, you're on the bus, you have quite long transfers. You know, after the race, it's straight away, you know, you've got another big transfer, you've got a massage, you've got an osteopath, then you've got to get quite a few meals in, and then you just, by the end of the day, you don't have much time to do anything, or much energy more than anything, just to, you know, either chuck on a podcast or chuck on a movie and read a book and try and get as much sleep as you can.
Obviously, a sort of you know, a result of the pandemic this year, obviously meant that you spent a lot more of your winter training, but your winter training in New Zealand. Did that change your program at all? And you know, you would have spent time here this year when you would normally been in Europe, I guess, and doing altitude training and stuff. And
no, actually, I did the reverse. It meant I couldn't get home. So
yeah.
I mean, I didn't get home in time. I didn't, you know, so I was home through. Normally, I try and always come home to New Zealand for Christmas, and I spent that period actually in quarantine and was able to get home for. In the end, I was pretty lucky. I got 6 weeks because I was able to stay until the nationals. But yeah, normally I would be home through December and January, you know, a bit longer, and try and spend a bit more time there. But yeah, this year I was actually unable to, just because, you know, quarantine spots and all that stuff. So I've been more in Europe, but I think it's been where I needed to be. It means I got an extra few weeks up at altitude early on, and in the back half of last year. And the way cycling's going now, it's really becoming about living up high, and you know, we've had a lot of changes in the team, a lot of equipment changes, bike sponsors, everything like that. So there's a lot of aero testing and setups and equipment testing that we needed to do. So as hard as it was to leave New Zealand, and it's probably one of the, you know, normally I'm pretty happy over in Europe. I've been living here since I was 18, and I have to say this time it was pretty tough getting on the plane, knowing what I was coming back to versus what I was leaving.
Obviously, being a climber, you know, your power to weight ratio is kind of what you live and die by. And does that mean you have to be really extra careful with your diet and what you eat and the calorie counting? Like how do you manage that, and how do you actually reward yourself with the things that you like to eat?
Yeah, well, I mean, it depends. It's you know, for sure, if you're trying to strip weight, you know, you sort of like ultimately you just got to ride your bike lots. I mean, I'm doing days where I'm putting out 5,000 calories just on the bike, and then there's another couple of thousand just to be alive. So when you've got 7,000 calories, you know, you're not having to be careful at all. You're struggling to get that much in. And a lot of the time, like, you know, we have a lot of nutritionists and a lot of yeah, in our team, a huge amount of importance is placed on nutrition, and it's mainly geared towards making sure you're staying on top of energy requirements, as opposed to, you know, guys, you got to stay super lean. But you know, you still, what you have to do is prioritize things, you know, and that means that, you know, you have to make sure you get enough carbs, enough protein for recovery. And then obviously, like, yeah, food here, you're eating a lot of it, but and we've got great chefs, and we've got a great great setup with that, but you're not food is more a fuel source than a let's say a treat or a you know, something that's really to be enjoyed. You know, it's very purposeful food. But so like I say, if you're putting away 7,000 calories in a day, you do have to, it comes a bit of a chore. But there's also days where you know, the two guys go up the road in an early break and you faff around at 150 watts, and you sort of, you do feel hungry, and you realize, you know, the nutrition count comes through, and you go, oh, I feel like I should probably eat a lot more than this. But yeah, and sort of opens my eyes to how hard it would be to ever try and lose weight if you didn't do exercise, or you didn't, you know, it just seemed impossible. So yeah, it changes a lot day to day, and it's quite an extreme variation between hard stages and easy stages.
And I think just thinking about the the wider community of, we've got a lot of Kiwis, I think, in the in the top flight of cycling at the moment, probably more, I would imagine, than there has been for a long time, if not ever. Do you guys, do you talk when you're in the peloton, and do you catch up with all the rest of the guys when when you're not racing? How does that work?
Yeah, I mean, I'm very close with a lot of the guys. We all sort of, well, most of us all hang out. Some of my best mates are the other professional cyclists over here, and we've got a very close group. And in races, there's always time. We always find each other, have a chat, shoot the shit, and sort of laugh about. It's nice. I mean, you sort of. I mean, I'm in a very sort of intense environment at the moment. I mean, it's great. It's a great team I have here, but there's also, pretty much everyone's speaking Dutch. And, there's a lot of sort of Spanish, Italian, a lot of different languages in the peloton, but not a huge amount of English. I mean, there's a few Aussies and Kiwis and things. So, often we sort of find each other, and also off the bike back home, we spend a lot of time, hanging out, and it makes it very easy to live over here, because it's when I first left and I had to live in France and do all that stuff, it was, I sort of got very homesick, and then throughout the years I've sort of transformed it to Europe being home because of these guys, because of the other pros. And I mean, there's been a lot of good pros in New Zealand cycling, and I think that we're just getting better and better. And in the Giro, there'll be me and Patrick Bevan. He's been riding really well, so I think he could be on for a stage win. I'm predicting in one of the sort of hard sprint stages. I think he'll be there or thereabouts.
Yeah, he's done great in the recent Tour of Romandy, and of course we'll see the other Kiwi champions jersey on his shoulders in the time trials, right? Which should be
we won't. That's Aaron Gate.
Oh, is that okay? Sorry, my mistake. It's at least we'll hopefully have another Kiwi winning a stage, as you say.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Well, hey, look, it's been great to talk, George. Thanks for your time, and obviously we wish you all the best. And have a great tour, and do us all proud. I'm sure you will.
All right. Hey, thanks, mate.
All right. Thanks, George. Cheers. Bye bye.